All right, we are live for another Travel Tip Tuesday, and today we are talking about working holiday visas in Australia. And if you have ever thought about a working holiday visa or even Australia in general, then you guys are going to want to listen to this. Today's guest is Katie Makemson, and she spent 3.5 years in Australia on a working visa. And so she's going to tell us all about it. And I'm super excited to have her on today because I've always wanted to go to Australia. And now we get to live vicariously through her. So thank you so much, Katie, for coming on today to talk about this subject.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So hi, everyone. My name's Katie. I am from Stuart, Florida, and that's where I live now. But I did spend 3.5 years in Perth, Western Australia, which is the only thing on the West Coast, literally. Kind of a fun fact, Western Australia is the size of Alaska. So if you can or like very similar. So if you can kind of think of that, one little city, not much. So it was quite the adventure. I went from, let's see, so 2013 through 2007. Yeah, I'm doing math there, kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went originally. I had an invitation to come over there, and I took it because you don't really get that often.
Yeah.
So the quickest way to get a visa was a working holiday visa, which allows you to come for a year, and it also allows you to work. The purpose behind it is that you will travel around Australia as you and you can work to kind of fund your traveling around. So they do have a rule: you can't work at a position more than 6 months, and then you have to kind of like move on to something else. So
very cool. So tell us a little bit about how you started traveling, how you even got this opportunity. You said that you kind of just jumped into it, but like what made you like get into this? Like what just kind of sparked it for you?
well, I do love traveling. I was very fortunate that my parents took me traveling when I was younger, and I have an older brother who did a lot of overseas traveling, and I was kind of like, oh man, I want to do some of that stuff. So in college, we did some trips through Europe, and then when I was backpacking it was in Ireland, and I met my friends from Australia, and so we just kind of stayed in touch, and was ready to look for an adventure outside of Stuart for a bit. And originally, I was going to go to San Diego, so I was out there. And I got the invitation to go over there, and I was like, "Oh yeah, let's try this out." You can always come back to the U.S. and try out San Diego at another time, but I'm staying here for a while.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I just love traveling. Even when I was there, I wanted to take advantage of being on that side of the world. And so I went to probably more countries around that area than actually seeing inside of Australia. Just probably a little bit of a regret. Like I didn't get to see all of the cities, and I didn't go to the Great Barrier Reef, but
well, hey, you live and you learn, right? So you can always go back.
yeah.
And really what it is, I think that we get that a lot just no matter where we are, right? Because like here in the US, it's like there's so much to see here in the US, but like even we like don't explore like so many times we're like, oh, let's go, to another country or Canada or Mexico or the Caribbean or whatever it might be. And we don't even explore like our own area. And I think COVID's actually helped with that because now people are like almost forced to explore like around them.
Yeah, a separate travel tip. Flights are so cheap within the U.S. right now. I just got a flight to Michigan the other day, $50 returns.
Yeah,
Yeah, super cheap. So that's
absolutely. Quick tip. So the working holiday visa in Australia, like what is that definition? Because I feel like when most people hear that, I think they have a general idea of what that means, but like it kind of, I feel like to an American, it's confusing because, for instance, when it says like holiday visa, when I think of holiday, I think of like Christmas or Thanksgiving, or maybe even like I know that the European definition of that is like a vacation, but still kind of like even with that terminology kind of put into the name, it's still confusing, I think. So can you kind of elaborate on that?
So working holiday, basically kind of the holiday part is your vacation, and the working is that you're funding your vacation around. So something that I did want to bring up too is, and I forget the requirements for Americans. I think at the time we could only do 1 year, but now you possibly can extend and do a second year, but you have to go do 3 months of like farm work type of thing. So a lot of Europeans were doing that. So they would go do like to a potato farm, or sometimes they would get lucky and go to a vineyard.
Wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, but you would have to go for 3 months and do physical labor to get your year extension. I got a little bit lucky. I was sponsored through my work, and my job was on the sponsored list. So we went and actually got my permanent residency there.
So your working holiday visa then was for only a year, correct?
Yes. Yep.
And then you got your permanent residency there.
Yes. So once I figured I wanted to stay longer than a year, and I was lucky enough that my job wanted to hire me to stay on and manage their business, then we went to an immigration, not really an immigration attorney, but kind of like an immigration advisor there. It's a little bit different, who was able to help me through the whole process and getting the business on so that they could sponsor. And so it was a big thing, but it wasn't impossible. It was just a lot of like checklist type stuff and making sure you get everything done. So it's not impossible, but you got to follow through with all this.
Yeah. Absolutely. So talking about the process of the working holiday visa itself, like for an American to get that, I presume it's probably different. Is it restricted just to Americans, or is that open to the whole world? Like anybody can take a working holiday visa?
I don't want to say anyone, because I think there would be some country restrictions, but yes, they're all like
they're all included in it.
Yeah, I think they have sometimes some reciprocal agreements with different countries. So, like I looked it up today. So, for an example, one of the rules is that you have to be under 30 years old to apply for it. So, but countries like Canada, France, and I think something else can do. It's 35 years old. So, yes.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of difference there, but yeah.
So when it comes to the process that you had to take in order to get the working holiday visa, like what did that look like? I know that was a few years back, but like how difficult was that, like to be able to get it, and did it cost you a lot of money? Like what's the process with that?
I don't remember it being too hard. I remember it taking, and I think I was trying to look up some facts today, and they say it takes a few weeks, and it did back then. You just have to get like your normal stuff, your birth certificate, your passport. I can't remember many specifics. For the price though, it was back then when it was like $465, and I looked it up now, it's like $485. So it's still the same price, which is good.
Okay.
But I did read that they're not accepting applications at the moment for it because of COVID. And Australia has been very strict with having flights in. It's also been, I've been talking to my friends, it's very strict traveling in between states. So everything's basically in a way on lockdown there, but not really, because it's kind of cool. They get to live their lives they have had no community COVID cases in Perth or in Western Australia for like 9 months.
Yeah.
So they live life like normal. And then anyone who comes in goes into a quarantine stuff. But anyways, that's COVID stuff.
Yeah, no, I had actually heard about that too, because I have a friend in Australia, and they were talking about how that was the case over there, and they had no cases. They have no COVID cases in Australia right now, which, kudos to them, so that's great. And hopefully it's a program that they're going to end up opening up in the future then after this circumstance. And, that's great that in the years that have passed that the price hasn't really gone up. So it hasn't inflated to anything else, and it's still a valuable experience. And I know that it's limited at a year. Are you able to extend that any further? Or is that kind of like you got a year and that's it?
So I'm not entirely sure on the regulations for Americans because when I was there, they said Americans couldn't do the extended year. But I know if you do the extended year, you have to go do the like farm work. So that kind of depends on what you want to do too.
So the first year is fun. The second year is hard labor.
Well, 3 months, but or you get smart and you get like a job to sponsor you to stay indefinitely if you want.
So your company that you got sponsored for was a company that was here in the US already?
No, I worked for a mixed martial arts gym over in Australia. And so they were expanding into a second business and asked me to be their manager. So I went and did that. I got sponsored as a customer service manager. And yeah, that's how I.
So how did you go through the process of finding this company? Obviously, this company is in Australia and you're in America. And it's like, how do you find a company to do that?
This is a really funny story. So they have a website called Gumtree.com, which is it's a I feel weird saying this. It's a Craigslist, but much more reputable kind of thing. So it's a great place for like sales stuff, job positions, and all kinds of stuff like that. So I went on there and I remember the first few weeks I was just like applying to anything. And I got called for an interview and I went to the interview and they asked, they were talking about hours and they said that it was, what did they say? They said it would be 20 hours a fortnight. And this is before the game was popular. And I'm like, oh, sure, that's okay. What's a fortnight? I had to go home and look it up. I'm like, oh, gosh, 10 hours a week. That's not going to pay any bills. So they eventually like took me on for more hours. And then I was like full time with them and stuff. But that was a little bit of a lesson. I was like, ooh, okay.
That's hilarious. Fortnite. Oh my gosh. 10 hours a week of Fortnite.
I learned
sure, fine. Yeah, just take me on. It's cool.
I learned a lot of like British, Australian slang and stuff. In Perth there are there's a lot of people from all over. Towards the end of my my time there, I was working for the University of Western Australia in their sport department. And we had people from so many different countries. It was the coolest thing. We had people from South Africa and Zimbabwe and Italy and Sri Lanka and just all over the place. It was really cool.
So was that your first time kind of being in like a melting pot that's like that? Because the melting pot here in America is completely different than like what you would find in other countries. So like, how was that experience? Like witnessing like all of those different cultures, being a part of that? And like, how did that make you feel? Like, because how old were you when you were there?
I was 27 when I left.
Okay. All right. So yeah, like what was that experience like for you?
It was pretty cool. That was probably the best experience was at that job because we had everyone. It was really neat. So in another story, in the office, we had all open cubicles. We were in like kind of a big room and there was different sections for different departments. And our finance department in the back used to always play this music. And everyone had like their song that kind of represented them. So like the Rains Down in Africa song was like the people from South Africa and Zimbabwe. And then mine was Born in the USA. So it was just kind of cool, like whenever that stuff came on. But you really got to they came from all over the world and you kind of got to. It was neat to kind of blend of working with them and traditions that each of us have. We all have kind of our stereotypes of our countries. And so
did you think that broke down some of the stereotypes of those countries, like working together?
Oh yeah, sometimes, but sometimes those traits really showed it. I mean, they're good. They're usually good traits for, what those people have. But, they brought definitely some stuff to the table from their culture that was pretty cool. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So what is the pay? Like, I know that it probably varies, but like the pay that you got when you were over there, Like, is that something that was very livable? Like, what is, what's that working look like over there?
So
Is it better than here in the US?
yeah, when I first went over back in 2013, sorry, got a little dog here.
That's okay.
The rate was dollar for dollar. So when everything went over, it was I kind of started myself off with a nice nest egg to get, if I can get a job, kind of thing. And so sorry, the dog has now distracted me.
Look at him. He was just like, pay attention to me, not that. No, you're fine.
So but also the thing that with Perth is it had the same cost of living as New York City when I went over. So going out, if you got a pint of beer, it was $12.
Wow, $12.
If you got a cocktail, it was $18. And they have like the same prices across.
And it's like Sprite and vodka.
those were mixed. Let's see, a mixed drink like that was, I think, 12 also. But the 18, they would do like a whole show, and it came out as artwork. And wow, this is a lot different than Stewart. But so it was pretty expensive. Cost of living was kind of like your housing and stuff was around the same. And then
Rick saying Atticus is stealing the show. Just had to throw that up there.
So now I lost my train of thought.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. The beer, alcohol, very expensive, New York.
Yeah. So it was, but then your pay was pretty good. I will say though, as time went on, the US dollar got stronger, and the pay wasn't as equivalent there, but
So are you paid based on like their wages over there, or because you're like an expat, it's coming from
no, you're completely paid by their currency. I had a bank account over there. Oh, that's probably a tip there. I did so much research before I left because I just sat there and did everything. I found bank accounts. I started applying for jobs before I went over there, just to try to. That didn't work out, but anyways, some people could do that. So yeah, and I have, sorry, my mind's on.
No, go ahead. No.
So when I flew over there, I could have flown direct, and the price would have been the same as stopping over in Fiji. So I stopped in Fiji for 5 days and did a tour before I went over there. So I did a lot.
There you go, guys. Don't discount the layovers in Fiji, okay?
So that was kind of cool. So, but yeah, it was neat. And then traveling over on that side of the world was part of the whole adventure too.
Had you been to other countries before that? I know that you said you had traveled a bunch, but like you were already in Europe or those areas at that point?
Mostly Europe, some Central America I had done. So this was my first time over on that side in Asia. I did mostly Asia, Southeast Asia.
Very cool. Yeah. And we actually have a question. So Kimberly would like to know, what do you miss most when you came back, and what did you miss most from here? That's a good one.
I want to answer the ones from here. So I missed Reese's peanut butter cups the most. So when I would come back, I remember I used to pack like a bag of like the little minis and keep them in the freezer. Another thing I missed was the marshmallows over there are so different. Our marshmallows are so much better. They're like fluffier. They had like these coating on them there.
Interesting. Yeah, not prime marshmallows in Australia. Got it.
And then I found they had an American store over there, so that was really cool. And I would frequent by there, and it was mostly boxed foods, but it had the staples that we are used to,
like what, Group Bear, ginger ale.
Yeah, I didn't really shop there too much often. And then what did I miss most when I came back here? I'm assuming.
Yeah. back here from over there? Like, what do you miss the most from there?
I made one of my very best friends there. The people there are really cool, and I miss her the most from there and her family. Her mom took me in, and at one point my mom and my uncle came to visit me for Christmas, and so she was like her mom was like my mom over there, and took care of any of, like, those comforting things that you usually get from your family. So
so it was like family, not far.
yeah, so I miss her the most. So we used to have oh my gosh, we used to have so many adventures out in Perth. And coming from Stewart, Perth was a huge city to me. Like, Perth has about I think 2.5 million is their city. And if anyone,
it's actually behind us too.
Yeah. That's a little downtown area on the water. But and the size of Perth is, I think, somewhere from Florida. So I would say anywhere from like Southwest Palm Beach up to, us in Jensen, Port St. Lucie is literally
probably about like 50 miles or so.
Yeah, because everything's kind of condensed over there, and then you've got some pockets of little cities, and we got to go around to do some of those. And right before I left, I had a friend from college come and visit, and we did a 2-week trip, and we went up to the north where the Outback meets the Indian Ocean.
The Outback. Mm-hmm. The only thing we know about Outback here in America is the restaurant.
That's not Australia at all. They don't know blooming onions.
They don't know blooming onions. So what does the Outback mean for Australia when literally everyone in America only thinks of a restaurant?
So yeah, Outback is kind of like bush stuff. So a lot of more like low growing plants than what we're used to. Usually we think of a forest of trees. Most of the stuff is low. It's very arid kind of climate. A lot of red clay. Is it kangaroos?
Kangaroos do exist in Australia. All right.
It took me about 6 months to finally see a live one. So,
oh no!
Well, no, I meant because I was in the city, and I was.
I was like, what are they taking kangaroos all over the place?
Well, you do see them on the road a lot too, so it could take a while to see a live one. But yeah, so in the Outback, it's so beautiful up there, and they have pink lakes, which are really cool.
Pink lakes.
Yeah, so it has something to do with the salt, and I think it has something to do with the sea level. Like, I think it's actually lower than sea level, if I remember that. But we went to this place called I think it was Port Gregory, up north of Perth along the coast. And it was pink lake, like Pepto-Bismol pink. It was so cool to see. And then we drove about 45 minutes west to this what do they call those? It's like own in micronation, I guess. Like it thinks it's independent of Australia, yet they're still fighting this stuff.
Oh, so it's like a Hong Kong of China.
Well, they were a farm, and they decided to secede from Australia when there was some wheat quotas and stuff. And if you listen to their story, the Crown has recognized that they seceded, but Australia hasn't. So there's some things there. But yeah, I got my passport stamped, so I got an extra stamp. They literally stamp in and stamp out.
Interesting. Yeah, because I know that, well, like Hong Kong is technically a part of China, but if you're in Hong Kong and you try to tell them that you're in China, like they're going to be like, no, like it's like separate. It's like a province. So I don't know what the exact.
Yes, this was the province of Hutt River, I think is what. Yeah, they call it. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. So that's very interesting. I didn't know that about Australia, but you said that you had traveled a lot, like within around the countries that were there, right? Mm-hmm. So and someone is saying like Taiwan. So I guess Taiwan is more like a province as well. And so you said that you traveled a lot when you were in that area. So how is traveling between those countries? Like, which countries did you go to? Because I know, like, when I go, I've traveled a lot of Europe. So when I'm in Europe, it's once I get over to Europe and take that big hurdle from the US to Europe, getting between European countries is super easy, super cheap, very, very easy to do. So, like, is that the same type of case like in Australia? No, like what is
No,
that?
no. If you're there's kind of two questions there. Within Australia, especially being in Perth, you had to fly everywhere, and it's the same flight as from LA over to Atlanta. Like it's just to the other side for the cities. As far as traveling on that side, so I did Fiji on the way in. Then I went to Bali. For my 30th, I did Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand. That was really cool. I went to the Blue Moon Full Moon party in Koh Phangan on my birthday. That was fun. That was crazy.
Ladies a partier. Got it. No, I'm just kidding.
And then I did the Philippines with my best friend there. We did 2 weeks traveling around there. But I would say that one trip where I did 3 countries, we had to fly in between each of the countries. Like it was.
Were they long flights? Like, are they pretty close to each other?
They were really close. When we did that trip, we went up to Vietnam, and Vietnam then flew to Cambodia, maybe like an hour at most.
Okay. So was that like from Australia? It was only an hour to get up there, or how far was it from Australia?
No, from Australia, that trip I had to fly into Thailand. I had to fly into Bangkok, and then go to Hanoi. And when we went to the Philippines, we went through Singapore and then into Manila. So the nice thing from Perth is Bali is like closer than going to New York City from Florida. Like and a lot of Australians go to Bali rather than going to the other side of Australia because it's so close and cheap when you get there. That.
Very cool. It's like the Caribbean of Florida or whatever, like that thing. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I feel like Bali is like so like, where everyone wants to go type of thing. So that's cool. That's really close.
Yes, there's a lot of Australians there who are just there to drink and party. But once you kind of get away from those areas and maybe see like an Airbnb or a villa or something, it's really nice. And it's not as kind of dirty in some areas. I didn't really feel too safe there at one point, but Bali was beautiful and great people once you got out of the touristy
areas. And that's how it is with any country that you go to. I mean, I think that a lot of the like cities in Europe per se, because that's where my experience is, are a lot safer than some of our cities here in the US. But like when it comes to getting in those touristy areas, like that's not where the culture of a place is. That's not where you're going to see like a true travel. Like, I think that if you're truly traveling, yeah, you can go and visit like the big touristy parts and say you were there or whatever it might be. Yeah. But like to go outside of that is where you're going to see the value. To go outside of that touristy area, because that touristy area is like being what the world wants it to look like, is how I say it. Like when you're in Paris, like Paris is trying really hard to look like what the world makes like Paris out to be. And same thing, I'm sure, for Bali, but breaking the mold and getting outside of that I think that's generally all over the world, everywhere you go, get out of touristy areas.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So was it very expensive for you to be able to travel between those places, or was it pretty affordable? Because I know that was kind of the second part of my question.
I'm trying to remember. It wasn't too bad. I mean, I think it was kind of what every other travel was. The Australian dollar was really good at the time when I was there. I remember that. I remember Bali being cheap, and I had to go get money converted, and their money is like, I don't know, like millions or trillions is their denominations. I took a picture on my Instagram because I like fanned out.
Like, I'm a millionaire.
Yeah, I probably had like $200. I'm like, look, who's got the money? So, I'm a billionaire. But yeah,
That's hilarious.
yeah, that was a cheaper place. The Philippines wasn't too bad. Oh my gosh, if I had a place, one of my favorite places for natural beauty is the Philippines, and El Nido specifically is absolutely incredible. It's do you remember the movie that Leonardo DiCaprio was in, The Beach?
The Beach. I am so bad when it comes to movies. Like literally, I can't remember 2 days ago very well. I thought today was Wednesday. So I mean, asking me questions about what I've seen in the past. Sure, let's say I have. Yeah.
Well, I actually haven't seen the movie either, but I do know that it's about this like pretty secret beach. I will say, however, they filmed the movie in Thailand, but it was originally a book, and the author of the book wrote it when he lived in El Nido because it has all of these like secret coves and stuff, and the water is just so teal, crystal clear blue, and the reefs underneath, they've got blue starfish, they've got iridescent clams that just like open up and move around, and like soft corals, and it was incredible.
In the Philippines, what did you call it? El Nino or
El Nido? The nest is
Nido.
El Nido. So you have to fly into Manila or Cebu, and you take like a tiny little plane over, and they land, and it's kind of like Hawaii. They play music before you even arrive, and
oh yeah. Oh,
yeah.
I haven't been to Hawaii yet either. That's on the list. I got a friend over there right now. So I'm like living vicariously through her. Our trip. That's awesome. So what do you think shocked you the most about going over there? Like what really just kind of like floored you and you were like not expecting it?
But what not shocked me the most, but driving on the other side of the road was a challenge. I would say it shocked me, but it was something that you had to learn to live with and deal with. When I first got over there, I got a scooter that looked like it was a Chinese version of a really cute Italian Vespa, but it was like made out of plastic. And, that was a little.
You're like, I'm driving my Barbie.
Yeah.
Barbie.
Helmet to match it. I looked cute, but I didn't look so cute when I was pushing it down the road when it broke. But when I first learned to drive, I was on the scooter. So that was a little bit easier because, you're in the middle of the road. But when I bought a car and you were on the other side of the car, that was, I had to think of things a lot. And that was pretty funny. And then, when normally driving, now we have our reverse cameras, but I got used to like driving and looking over my right shoulder to look back.
Oh, yeah, I guess you have to look.
I really wasn't comfortable looking to the left, so I would still look towards the right in between the seat and the car door. But
oh geez, yeah, no, that's definitely an adjustment. And do they have like a lot of stick shift cars over there, or do they have automatic? Because I know.
Yeah, so when you would get a license over there, it was very easy for an American to get a license. It was quite difficult for some of my friends of other nationalities to get theirs. I feel bad. And our license here in Florida doesn't designate if we drive a manual or an automatic. So I automatically got the license to drive both, even though I've really only driven like stick kind of once. So they gave it to me. My poor friend, it was so hard for him to get a license. He had to do driving tests and like driving courses. They were really strict, whereas I just got to walk in with mine, which was kind of a benefit. But
yeah, no, absolutely. And I've talked to a few of my friends about that because I've been doing a lot of like travel rooms and such on this app called Clubhouse or whatever. But like, so I've talked to some of my friends on there, and like, we talk about some of the things that they mention is like literally us as Americans, we are very lucky all over the world. Our passport is like one of the most like valuable and strong things in this world. So if you have a passport, and what's crazy is that being the strongest piece of identity in the world, yet only 40% of Americans have their passport. And the only reason it's that high, it's like 42%, that's like the high, I guess, is because back in 2008 or 2009, like somewhere around that time period, they actually required, like you didn't need to have your passport to be able to go to the Caribbean or Canada or Mexico before, but then they changed that to where you needed your passport, and then that's when there was like a huge jump in the passports. But 42% is literally like nothing. Like I think Canada is at 76%, and like England is at like 65%, and we're here at like a measly 42. And like nobody takes advantage of it. Like there's so many Americans who have never traveled.
Yeah. And you always need your passport to be valid for at least 6 months.
Yeah.
It's a very lesson to learn.
It's crazy, but I think a lot of people are getting more of an itch now because of COVID. Like now they're like trying to get their passport. Actually, on my YouTube channel, that's the most popular video I have, is how to get your passport. And I'm like, good guys, get your passport, go.
Yeah.
Important. So actually, I have another question here, and Kimberly wants to know: was hot water considered a luxury or pretty common?
Oh, hot water it was common. Just houses were very similar as here in the U.S. I think I tried to do the whole the water go down the drain experiment, but I can't remember. I think I remember just going down, not really like spitting.
Yeah.
But one thing that was different that we have here is the toilet was separate from the shower and bath facilities. But everything else was pretty much the same. Refrigerators, all your kitchen appliances. Something that's kind of cool or different is when you're renting over there, you're renting into a house, and it doesn't have a refrigerator, it doesn't have, I can't remember, I don't know if it has a stove or not, but those like appliances, you have to basically bring them with you, which
when renting.
Yeah, or like washer and dryer and stuff. Like you bring those appliances with you. Like the landlord doesn't provide them. And another thing that they did was house inspections. So towards the end, I was renting at a house, and I think it was every 3 months, the property management company, and this was everyone who rented, they would come at least every 3 months and do a whole inspection. So they would walk through the house, and they were strict. So if there was dust on your air vents, that was considered like either a fine or a warning or whatever. We were lucky, we were very clean. If you had weeds out in your garden beds, you were like fined for those. So
dang.
That was something that was different than here. And then I'm like, wait a minute, this is a whole industry here, that because you can make money off of people being lazy.
That's true. So what do? They fine you and then be like, okay, this is who you call to clean your house.
Yeah, I can't remember. I would like to think they gave a warning, but I do remember it being very strict. And I was like, I guess that's what I was most shocked at. I was
wow.
Like, what do you mean?
What do you mean you're going to inspect my house and make sure that I'm living a not crazy life?
Yeah, which, I mean, I understand that, because if, especially as a homeowner, and if you were renting, you would want your place taken care of, which is the nice part of it. But
oh, so it's just with the renting.
Just rent. Yes.
Just okay, so it's like a renting inspection, like type of thing. So were they like frequent, or were they
at least every 3 months? Sometimes some people had to do them even more. But
wow. Yeah, I guess that is a lot different than here in the US, where it's like, okay, I trust you to not mess up the house.
Yeah, you put down like a security deposit, and check it when you're done. But right?
That's true. Yeah, no, you just put down a security, first, last, and security. They usually do, and then any money that like they have to spend in fixing the house. Mm-hmm. But it's probably just more manageable to be, or I don't know. That's interesting. That's just an interesting way to like look at it comparatively, because one, they kind of do the same thing, but the other is probably a little bit more time consuming, having to have someone inspect it. Yeah. Because who pays for that? Who has to pay for the inspection? Do you, or do they? You pay
it through your rent, and you're paying it as your Yeah, because most people there go through these property management rental agencies to find a place. So there's a whole industry in it. Talk to the realtors around here. But yeah, there's a huge rental industry there.
Very cool.
Because buying a house was so expensive. So most people rented.
Yeah, it wasn't like a livable type of thing. I feel like that's how it is in a lot of different places. I wonder what the percentage was where renters to buyers. That'd be interesting to know. Not that I expect you to know, but be like, yeah, do you do real estate in Australia? Do you know the statistics, please? Thank you. Well, so go ahead.
I should fake it and make you think that it's about 72.3%.
Yeah, no, yeah, totally. I mean, not that Americans would know the difference. They'd be like, okay, great. That's funny. So is there anything else that you want to kind of add to like the conversation, just in sense of like what your experience was that we haven't really gone over, like that you think people out there should really know? Like what if someone's considering taking a holiday visa? Like what kind of advice would you give them?
So I was working at the Children's Museum, and I highly recommend, I go around and tell all young people this who are coming out of high school. I'm like, or in high school, I'm like, save your money and go do the whole gap year thing in between high school and school. You can always come back to a school. I know a lot of parents would probably kill me when I say this stuff, but go have these life experiences. They mean so much. And Australia, you have to do it by 30. I think New Zealand has a very similar program, so you could almost do them back to back with the different countries. And do it. Oh my gosh, if I was younger, I would have probably gone back and done New Zealand. And I think you can even do some in Europe if you really like look into it. I think they've got these programs in other countries and areas. So work hard to save your money, and then just to get yourself over there, and then you can get a job. There was a lot of jobs of like baristas, or I mean, you could get any job. You just couldn't stay at it for more than 6 months. And yeah, I guess that's my advice in all of it, is do it. And the reason that kind of pushed me to go do it is I had a friend here who said you can always come back to like your home area, and there'll always be that opportunity to do something here within the US. So go take an adventure, a little further adventure. And even if you don't like it, you can come right back. Like it's
that easy.
I guarantee you're gonna like it. I loved it. I honestly,
I think it's so easy for people to get so afraid of like checking out these other places, because it's, I get it. If you're living especially if you lived in the same city your entire life and you've never seen or known anything else but that city, for you to go like to another country and take that type of leap, I get that it can be very overwhelming, and like you kind of be like, oh, who would do that? Like that sounds crazy. But it's truly one of the most life-changing things I think that you can do, is to just travel and see the world. Like just take the chance, just do it, just give it a shot. Because like Katie said, like you can always come back. If you don't like it, you can always come back. Yeah. It's always an option.
I think I'm a pretty social person, so you do have to kind of put yourself out there a little bit more. Like I started joining some younger groups, kind of like we have Young Professionals here. That's how I know Lucy. Little plug there. But I started to go to events like that, and I found people who were kind of in the same situation. They were from different countries, and we really started to rely on each other and became good friends and stuff. So, and did things together. So it was awesome. And if anyone's on the fence, do it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why I started my nonprofit that I have to like help those students get out and about. So it's really amazing. So I'm glad that you came on and you shared your experience with that. Thank you guys for the questions that you guys asked. I do have one last question for you. This is something that I ask every person who comes onto my little show here. And it's a little deep. Are you ready? She's like, oh no, I always like to people get a little freaked out. but it's like one of the, I think it's something that really hits home. So can you tell everyone how travel has changed and impacted you as a person?
It is sure. It is me at the core. It's me. It's my hobby. Probably my biggest hobby is I don't know. I want to go everywhere. So it's looking up destinations. It's looking through photos at ones you've already been to, talking about places you've already been, hearing from other people where they've gone. It's me. It's what excites me. I usually like being in places that are near the water,
Yeah.
most, but it's my kind of happy place. It can be stressful at times, but I know I just love having a new adventure and usually going somewhere different than where I've been before. A few places I go back to, but I do like trying to experience new places.
I love that.
Is that a good question?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's good. It's changed so many people's lives in so many ways. And I love that you just said that it's just me. Like you, like, it seems like you said that you've been traveling since you were younger. And like, I think that that resonates a lot, but I feel like a lot of people end up having to discover it and like don't even realize that it was them all along. So that's really awesome that you kind of had that intuition beforehand and that you really ran with it rather than
I do have to thank my parents. My parents, they're also travelers. They probably helped instill that in me, both domestically and internationally. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you, so, okay, I said that was the last question, but how do you think that that impacted you having that, that be a part of your childhood? Because there's so many children that like don't get that opportunity, like their parents are working too much and they don't get to travel. So like, obviously it led to you traveling more, but like, do you ever look back on that and you're like, oh, wow, like that's like, I wouldn't be where I am today without that? Or what do you?
Yeah, that's definitely the thing, and I also feel very blessed for those opportunities. I understand that a huge percentage of the world doesn't get that opportunity, but there's also kind of some joy in where you live too, and almost pretending like you're a traveler sometimes in your own cities. And sometimes I look on Groupon and I'm like, geez, what are the tourists doing in this area? I host a I've done Airbnb in my house before, so people come to visit. And I'm like, this is a good place. So there, even if you're not able to travel a far distance, there's usually some pretty cool things within close reach of where you live to see and pretend to be.
That is very true. And I think that a lot of people, again, are just getting used to that with COVID, the whole aspect, and just being able to explore their backyard a little bit more. All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Katie, for coming on here and sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge about your experience in doing a working holiday visa in Australia. If you guys are just tuning in now, make sure you guys rewatch this conversation that I just had with Katie. It was awesome to hear about her experience over there, truly. And guys, I go live every Tuesday for a Travel Tip Tuesday with a new guest. So make sure that you guys follow me on Facebook and subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. We stream live to Facebook and YouTube. And follow me on Instagram at The Traveling Lucy to get the updates of when I'm doing them and who my guest is. So I look forward to seeing you guys again next week. And thank you so much again, Katie.
Thanks so much for having me, and head to Australia.
Yes, head to Australia, guys. Have an amazing one. Thank you, guys. Bye.